This is crazy. I cannot wait to cut the plastic off that thing because the Digital Shovel Minipod is a plug-and-play Bitcoin crypto mining farm. It has everything set up inside of it, so where you just splice your own electric service into it, throw some miners in there, connect Ethernet and power, and you are hashing away, earning Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, passive income mining. Obviously, we like building our own mining sheds here. I mean, it's what really started the whole VoskCoin journey. But to also be able to evaluate a plug-and-play option like this, and now I can instantly double the amount of mining rigs I am ready to deploy now, this is exciting.
Ho, 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 Crypto Santa.
Man, you get into character, I love it. Is that really you, Santa?
It's really me, really Crypto Santa.
Man.
But that's just a stocking. Let's get to the real gift.
Oh, okay. 930 Telegram messages later, 3.5 emails, and one stressful call to the logistics company.
You got it sorted out though.
A couple of days ago.
We got the truck here. Here we are at the secret Vosk farm location, ready to deliver the first ever 208 version of the Digital Shovel Minipod.
So Scott, how do you deal with the weatherproofing of the actual pod?
We wrap them like this so that, let's say your site wasn't ready and it was one that you're going to join multiple together. You don't want to have it exposed to the elements, so this can actually be left outside for several months, so long as somebody doesn't cut into the weather stripping. Well, it protects all the electronics inside of it. We now add a weather stripping membrane along all welded edges. So even if there is an imperfection in the weld, or if somebody moves the container and stresses out the weld a little bit and it cracks down the road, that's still sealed. It has an extra layer of redundancy. The other thing you're going to see when we get inside the pod is the area that's over top of the miners. That is one solid panel. So there's no seams over the miners. So even if I did have a leak within one of the seams, it's going to go, exactly.
Cool, I'm excited.
Which you'll see once you get it unwrapped here. All right, we finally got the pod here on the ground at the VoskCoin mining farm. Quite the battle getting the truck down the road. And out. And now we're ready for the unwrapping.
Let's do it.
Cut along here.
I was going to ask, I don't want to scratch the paint.
Just cut lightly, there's nothing in behind here. Go all the way down to the bottom and we can just press that. It's fine. It's fine. Bottom will be a little tight. The keys, sir.
Hey, the moment.
The moment.
We got to do that cheesy, like, you hand me the keys, we handshake thing, like.
Keys in this hand.
Uh-oh, the big moment.
Watch this, they put the wrong keys on it. The right keys.
That'd be funny. What a day. Let's check it out. Jumping in. Man, this is cool. I know you've been in them a bunch, but I've never been in one.
Yes.
So I'm kind of having a moment.
Yeah. So you've got your two PDUs on either side. The PDUs control the fans.
It smells fresh.
It is fresh paint on the bottom. These control the auxiliaries as well as the fans. They're all controlled through the Smart PDU. There's sensors throughout the pod, so you've got a sensor in the in the hot side, cold side, and outside. This is if you wanted to connect an adjacent pod to it. So this piece actually does come out, and then you could put another pod on there, not in this particular configuration. It came with S19 back sheets. This is actually the back sheets for a conventional setup where you would run 88.
Yeah.
You can use them for the time being, but we can always swap those out. They just literally, they're snap lock, so I should do it with gloves because it is a little sharp, but these just pop up, and you can pop them out without any tools. You've got the hot air recirculation down at the bottom. So this shelf is actually a duct. You can see there's a blower fan in the back there. That's the one that sits in the middle. That'll actually grab hot air from that side and pump it back to this side when it gets really cold. Cable trays for your power. Then your Ethernet is all up here. So you can run it up through these ducts. There's little passageways for you to run your Ethernet cables neatly and have good cable management, so it doesn't look like my earlier data centers where everything was all over the place.
I hear that.
Filters over here. There's little clips that hold these in place, but to change them, there's like these little filter retainers that go on top. They've got a membrane around it to seal around the filters really well. These are super standard 4-inch deep 24 by 24 filters. You can get them
Like
Home Depot, Amazon. There is a couple other cheaper distributors you can get them from as well. Cameras inside, outside. Now we don't have any power on it, so that's why you have a conventional door lock in addition to the electronic door lock. So if we go on the outside here,
That's a fun big button. That's a fun big button. I feel like I'm exiting like a space station. You know,
on the other side you've got
depressurized.
number code entry, but it also works with like a key fob and like a card strike as well, so you can program that.
Oh, that'd be
the instructions for that are all in the box that comes with cards as well. And then on the back, you can see them from the inside.
Like the embossed logo is a cool touch.
Yeah, it's a new piece of, well, it's a very expensive piece of machinery to do that. We only got it about a year and a half ago. And it can do, well, like we have Digital Shovel M3 literally written along here.
Yeah.
But what that also allows us to do, so we used to make these all out of 14 gauge steel. We now make them out of 16 gauge. These ribs and embossing actually give it more strength than going with a thicker metal. So I can use a thinner metal and actually achieve more strength, makes it easier to move around, requires less heavy of a forklift in order to put them into the field as well, and saves on money in metal.
And you said this is about 2,000 pounds?
1,500.
1,500 pounds?
I tell people 2,000. Usually, on the actual spec sheet it says 1,500, but I tell them 2,000, so they always get a little bit more forklift than they need, just in case. All of our fans in the back, you can see them from the inside here, or from the other side as well, but and they're all controlled by the PDU, so they come on stages depending on what the temperature is.
No, with my first, like, you know, I call it like the redneck data center, like mining shed. And, you know, I had vertical louvers in like my basically redesign of it. And I did have water come in sometimes in some bad storms. The way it was sheltered, it was never really that big of a deal, but you never want to see like a little bit of water next to all of your electronics, your life savings, your business, whatever.
The other thing that's important to note though is on occasion you might still get water. We open the door and it's raining here and water's going to get in. There are little micro holes throughout the floor to allow for drainage, so you can see them at the bottom of these little embosses. And as well as in front where the miners are. So if you ever do get water in there, it's going to drain. I mean, it's not something that happens a lot, but if it does happen, you want to give it a way to go, because what's going to happen is that bottom shelf of miners, the fans are going to suck everything in. So if you get cooled standing water there, even if you know, there's not a lot that sits there, eventually it's going to find its way to the miners. This gives it an option for it to vent. Yeah, so the Smart PDU is set up in such a way that it controls not just the miners, but it controls the whole data center. So it logs all of your temperature data. It's set up so you don't even need your network set up. So if we had power run for this, the Smart PDUs actually have Wi-Fi built into them. So you could hook in with your phone, connect directly to the PDU, and then administer the entire thing. So you could test out your fans and everything else you need to do before you get your router and your IP set up. It can locate your devices. So say you're using DHCP, instead of putting a static IP on every miner, you can plug in all your miners, turn on DHCP, they'll pick up random IPs. The PDU will ping the whole subnet and turn off one outlet at a time and figure out which miner is on which outlet, and then label the IP, the MAC address, and if it's a type of miner that it knows, it'll label what type of miner it is in there as well, and it does all that automatically.
That's really cool, because that was going to be my next question, because I know that your design had done something on that front, but that's like talking to a lot of people that build out bigger farms. That's one of the things that really hits them that they don't expect is, where's my miner, which one's which, how do I scale, how do I control all these? You put two on the same static IP address by accident and now they're both not working, and then you you just deal with all this weird troubleshooting and anything that can kind
And that
of.
can be weeks and weeks of work.
Yeah.
Like to sit, like if you've got a farm with 10,000 miners, just sit, open each one, set a static IP, go and install it. Whereas this, guys love it. They go in, you throw as many IPs as you can fit on that subnet, tell it to scan. It takes about 45 minutes for each pod to do it. And the nice thing is, if you have a power outage, it saves the MAC address. So like, let's say you had a power outage, it was out for 2 days. You can tell it just to relearn based on MAC, so it doesn't turn the device off. It says, well, you know what, this MAC address was on this location. I didn't change any plugs. It'll check what the new IP is and just update that on it.
That's huge. That's huge. So let's talk security, because people quickly realize how important that is once you start stuffing expensive gear in here. And so there's a lock, there's a camera. How did you fortify the pod?
Having active cameras on the outside, see that there's an active security system rather than just a conventional door lock that they can fit. The only time the door lock is used is when there's a power failure. Generally, you can have both on. You can have, with most clients, it's like, and probably what you'll do, the only time you're going to be using the keypad is when you're here on site, you're going back and forth between your shed, and you just want quick access. Usually you want to have a level of redundancy, so you've got the key, plus you've got the mag lock as well.
Those little things could be the difference between like a low-level theft and just, or even a break-in or like a vandalism. Sometimes people will just want to go mess things up.
Yeah.
So how long does it take to produce this?
We produce between 16 and 20 of these a week. Every department is doing their stage in sequence. So the welding guys, I mean, from start to finish, I mean, they made this last week.
Yeah.
The pod, basically.
Paint smells fresh. It smells like last
Well,
week.
the last thing we do, even if the pod is considered, usually what we'll do, we have pods that are always in stock, but they might not be fully complete. So we leave the awnings off, so we've got lots of room on the awnings, or lots of room in our production facility. And then options like the security, the hot air recirc, stuff like that isn't added on. So when an order comes in, we add those final options on. Last thing they do is they paint the floor, so it's nice and fresh because the workers are going in and out of it. That's what you're smelling is the epoxy on the floor. And then it goes out the door.
So when it comes to cost, as this is configured, how much does this cost?
So something like this, as it's configured, it's going to be around about $35,000 US. It's comparable to our 415. To be honest, it costs us more to make a 208 version. So dollar per capacity, it's a lot more affordable if you're able to do 415 on a per miner basis.
And why is this more expensive?
Because we produce those PDUs in lower volumes, so our economies of scale aren't quite as high. Whereas the 415 one, you know, I make thousands of those PDUs. Yeah. The version that you have isn't as high a volume, so our cost on producing the PCVs and stuff like that isn't spread out across as many customers. But if somebody wanted to get something like this today, to hook it up at 208, you'd be, depending on the options, around 35 grand. That's going to be able to do 43 miners. And if you were going to do it with the 415 power feeding it, then you could do 88 miners for around the same price.
And then, does that include shipping, or do you have to also figure logistics?
Logistics. We, as you know, we have an in-house logistics coordinator, and we work with a couple different carriers, primarily for logistics. Single units, we'll mix and match the carriers, because what we'll do is we'll try to pair your load with somebody else's load, even if it's not a mini pod, just to make sure that we can bring that price down. Yeah. But full truck loads we can coordinate as well. Yeah,
especially like consuming on a smaller scale, like just grabbing one pod. Again, the logistics is something I just didn't really think about, and when you're dealing with more in volume, you're like, of course, we're gonna need trucks and trucks of these coming in because we're ordering a bunch of pods. But it's nice that you have an in-house logistics team to help solve that, because, you know, the average person will just be inexperienced there. Yeah. And you know, that creates a hurdle for them, and obviously you, because, you know, you're looking to sell and move the product, and they want it. Like on the production side, what have you invested in that just makes this like a step above? It makes it nicer, makes it higher quality, more durable, other than the obvious proprietary smart PDU system, which is very cool, but more of like the hardware other than that.
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of cost, it's a mix. I want to see 50%, a little more than 50% is our staffing, and a good chunk of that is the R&D that goes into it. Yeah. We've got a team of 11 engineers and a pile of people in the back as well that are working on these day in, day out, not just on production ones, but on prototypes. So that's factored into our cost. And steel is by far the other biggest single component, followed by circuit breakers. What we've invested in, I would definitely say we've got a fully automated, and by the way, you need to come up to the factory.
Oh, we're doing that. That's happening.
We have a fully automated laser turret machine, so we can stack in 8 skids of steel, 5,000 pounds each. It looks like a big elevator. It'll bring the skid down, load its own sheet. It can take a piece like this awning, cut the whole piece, put the logo onto it, and even if I wanted to put tapping, so if I wanted to thread corners, it can do all that. Then it has little robotic arms to come and grab it and stack those pieces automatically. That process for us manually, a single piece used to take, I don't know, 30 minutes or something. This will do a piece in 10 or 15 minutes, but it'll run lights out. In other words, it runs at night by itself. So we just load the thing up, let it go. Not for all the pieces, but doing that has allowed us to create pieces that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to create. Like, if you don't pay attention to it, you don't notice it, but this is all one sheet of metal and there's no beam underneath it. So we've taken this piece here and rolled it onto itself 3 times and basically made the edge of the sheet is actually the beam. Same goes with that little backlit. This acts as the beam for the shelf. That doesn't seem like much, but that shelf is only 0.63 of an inch high. Trying to get a beam to create that much strength to hold that much miners was nearly impossible, and there was nothing on the market. You can't do that with brake press. I mean, the machine we have is a $2.5 million folding machine that allowed us to do these.
Wow, it took me a second to process that. Like, my brain was like, yeah, he just said $2.5 million folding machine.
Yeah.
So laundry doesn't stand a chance.
The laser turret is close to that amount if you were to buy them new as well.
Yeah. But no, so I mean, that's really cool. Just the fact, like, that level of investment in your production is very cool, because that's why I wanted to talk through that with you, because at first glance, you know, a lot of people think, I'll just build it myself, it'll be cheaper, but you can't build something like that. And sure, you can DIY, you know, a competitor product for a lower price, but you can't DIY like a lot of these things that you custom manufacture in-house. And it's not just about the, you know, rarity, it's about the actual performance, the utility, and really like just the density. Because the way you're rolling that and then you're making it that thin, you know, all that combined, that may be the difference in you getting another shelf down there.
It is the difference between you getting another shelf. And that's why we had to go there. I mean, that's why the original Minipod was 80 rather than 88. We used to run a 3/4 inch bar and a mesh deck across it that we would weld together. Not only did I lose a shelf, but it was a whole process of a guy having to weld that bar in, then putting the mesh deck onto it. Whereas that machine that I described, you put in the blank, hit a button, that shelf comes out the other end. An operator doesn't touch the piece.
So I'm really excited to see that eventually, because I love like the automation of things. And I mean, you know, just good employees are incredible, good workers are incredible, but they're hard to find. And
like, we're fortunate that we've got a lot of really, really good employees, and we're always looking for more.
Yeah.
Apply for a job. We're on Indeed.
Shameless plug right there.
But that said, I mean,
we're charging you for that one.
The more repetitious stuff I can automate, the more I can allow my staff to spend their time on the creative stuff that really allows their talent to shine.
Yeah.
We're actually in the process of installing right now a fully automated PCB assembly line as well. So we're not going to make the circuit boards, but the actual assembly of the circuit boards, we're going to do fully in-house.
So when are we going to see some in-house miners?
You know what? It's not. Everybody thinks it's the assembly side, and I see guys on forums being like, oh, it's just these components, easy to do. It's getting that actual chip and making that chip. And we always, like, our goal at Digital Shovel is to make a good product, but B, to like have a little bit of an edge and create a value proposition for our customers. Yeah. There is not a lot of room to improve and create a better value proposition there without spending an absolute fortune. Yeah. Like, it's tough for somebody to get into that type of equipment to build this kind of product. I try not to be greedy with our pricing. Like, we're probably half, sometimes sometimes a third of what our nearest competitor is price-wise for, you know, what I think is either a comparable or better product, because, you know, the better I can make the value proposition for our end customer, the more likely they are to make money, and even more likely to come back and buy product from us.
Yeah.
glad this finally is on the ground. How many months have we been talking about this one?
I mean, I feel like we've been talking just all year. Scott, seriously, man, thanks so much for coming down. This is exciting. Thanks for bringing this. I'm gonna try to get this all hooked up over the next week and really start mining some Bitcoin and other coins in here. So it's it really like it looks cool online, like yeah, but seeing it in person, you can really just start to like appreciate it and like those finer details. So thanks, and I'm excited.
As am I, man. As am I. Can't wait to get you one of the immersion tanks down here as well.
Yeah, and subscribe to our channel and their channel because we're gonna get on the books. We're going to Digital Shovel Factory. I'm going Canadian. They're gonna kick me out.
Shining.